Funny how the world makes so many assumptions. When you have a medically complex kid, all the medical community assumes that it's the responsibility of your pediatrician, but your pediatrician is really pulling back from you because they have less and less to do with you because you're not a typical kid. And there's this huge hole that doesn't really get filled. It gets missed between all the specialists that you see.
And we knew that palliative care is different than hospice care. We knew it wasn't an end-of-life engagement. It was, from our perspective, a way to help us make decisions and what can we do to make Ben's life most comfortable, make him more comfortable.
For example, we eventually stopped giving Ben swallow studies because we knew his swallowing was going away. The study was only telling us that. It was only giving, quite frankly, school systems ammunition to why he couldn't do something instead of us, which is he can still do something. And so we stopped having them. There wasn't a purpose that was making his life better unless we wanted to choose a feeding tube, and that's a different conversation than just a swallow study. I mean, we knew he was aspirating. We knew we needed to puree everything. We knew we needed to modify how we were feeding him. We didn't need a test or him to have to go through that.
It was actually such a perfect use of palliative care to essentially to create a space where you can examine what next steps are. And you two came already with a language about talking about them, a philosophy of care. You were very clear that you wanted to do those things that would help the quality of his life.
I thought that was something you helped us with a lot, was to be able to translate our philosophy into a language, into a conversation with the medical field on how we wanted to approach Ben's care.
We were trying to decide whether we were going to fuse his spine, and as Stuart said, we wanted to get all those doctors in the room to say, okay, if we fuse his spine, what's the impact on his GI tract and all the things that are making up Ben, and have the doctors be aware of the impact, the surgeon to be aware of the impact of the spinal surgery on his GI tract, on his thing. And I know they can kind of think about it, but when you sit down and you put a face on it and you have a full-on conversation, it's much different than sitting with a chart. And I think palliative care made that happen.
So I think the palliative care role, again, is not so much to be directive, but to say, well, here are some of the good questions that we should examine so that we can figure out together what makes the most sense.
Palliative care could hear through it and talk about it medically, talk about it emotionally, talk about the physical changes that Ben's body would go through. That's a lot to put together into one package, and it's so helpful when it's filtered down for you a little bit, because your emotions are, I don't mind around the topic, as I said, just because I'm the mother and it's my job.